Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are diving straight into one of the absolute wildest stories happening right now at the intersection of finance, tech, and national security. We're seeing a massive fundamental shift. Event-based contracts, these platforms where people are literally betting real money on the outcomes of real-world events, are totally blurring the lines between legitimate financial hedging, serious political forecasting, and just plain speculative gambling. And the stakes? Well, they've gotten so incredibly high that the U.S. Senate actually had to step in and ban its own members from participating. So we're going to break down exactly how this all went down, the massive scandals that kicked it off, and what it all means for the future of information. Let's get into it.
Okay, $404,000. That is not a Wall Street bonus. It's not a lottery ticket. That is the alleged illicit profit pocketed by a rogue U.S. Army Special Forces soldier. And he didn't make this money trading stocks, he made it on a decentralized prediction market using highly classified military intelligence. This one single payout was essentially the match that lit a massive regulatory firestorm right in the middle of Washington. The timeline of how Master Sergeant Gannon Ken Van Dyke pulled this off is jaw-dropping. It reads like an espionage thriller, but it is entirely real. Just weeks before Operation Absolute Resolve, he signs NDAs specifically regarding Western Hemisphere operations. Then, right on December 26th, he fires up an account on a platform called Polymarket and drops $33,000, betting that Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro would be ousted by the end of January. Fast forward to January 3rd, Maduro is captured. The president posts about it on social media and boom, Van Dyke's bet instantly transforms into that massive $400,000 payout. Allegedly, he was even placing bets while Maduro was already sitting in custody on a U.S. Navy ship. It's absolutely wild.
Section 1. The Maduro Bet Scandal.
Now, you might be thinking this Van Dyke thing is just an isolated true crime story, but it actually cracked open a terrifying national security vulnerability. Lawmakers suddenly realized, wait, highly classified military ops can just be front-run and monetized by anyone with a smartphone? So the Commodity Futures Trading Commission stepped in and they invoked something super interesting, the Eddie Murphy Rule. This is a piece of the Dodd-Frank Act that strictly bans trading on non-public government information. And yes, fun fact, it is literally nicknamed after the movie Trading Places. But the huge takeaway here is that this was the very first time regulators dropped this specific financial hammer on the event contract space. They officially started treating these prediction bets just like Wall Street insider trading.
And if you're wondering why the Senate panicked, the Anti-Corruption Data Collective found a glaring statistical anomaly that explains it perfectly. Usually long-shot bets in general event markets win maybe 14.5% of the time, but in military and defense markets, that win rate somehow surges to an unbelievable 51.8%. So yeah, people weren't just getting incredibly lucky guessing about things like the Iran-US ceasefire. They were clearly trading on signal intelligence that the public didn't have yet.
Section 2. The Senate's unanimous ban. Seeing these massive intelligence breaches became the undeniable final straw. Washington is notoriously divided, right? But on April 30, 2026, the Senate moved with lightning speed, dropping all the usual political drama to unanimously stop the bleeding. But to understand what they did, we have to clarify what they were actually targeting. An event-based contract is a financial agreement that is completely 100% tied to a specific outcome. Will a ceasefire happen by Tuesday? Yes or no? It's totally binary. If it happens, you get paid. If it doesn't, your contract goes to zero. Lawmakers realized that this precise binary setup was just way too easy to exploit if you happen to be holding inside knowledge.
So here is exactly how the Senate tackled it. Senator Bernie Moreno spearheaded Senate Resolution 708, which immediately changed internal ethics rules to ban senators from participating in these contracts. And this is crucial. Senator Alex Padilla pushed an amendment that extended this ban to Senate officers and staff. That's a huge deal because, let's be honest, it's often the staffers who are in the classified briefings or drafting the legislation who actually hold the real information advantage. Plus, because they did this as an internal rule change and not statutory law, it took effect instantly. No presidential signature required.
Section 3. The Legislative Mosaic.
But that self-imposed Senate ban, that was really just the opening shot. Now, the rest of the 119th Congress is scrambling to regulate these markets for everyone else, and we're seeing a massive, chaotic wave of proposed legislation. They are taking totally different approaches here. You've got the PREDICT Act and the Public Integrity Act, which are super targeted. They just want to stop government officials and their families from trading on policy secrets. But then you have bills like the Stop Corrupt Bets Act and the explicitly named Death Bets Act taking a total sledgehammer to the industry. They want to completely wipe out markets based on elections, war, or terrorism for all participants. They are effectively trying to reclassify these specific platforms as illegal gambling.
And the political dynamics here are absolutely fascinating to watch. On one hand, congressional leadership is pushing incredibly hard for bans. You've got Senator Chuck Schumer warning against turning Congress into a literal casino, and House leaders like Mike Johnson and Steve Scalise are looking at similar bans for their members. But then, over on the right, the Trump administration has taken a much more permissive stance. The CFTC under President Trump actually withdrew older bans on geopolitical markets. Plus, the administration has some personal ties to the sector, with Donald Trump Jr. advising major platforms and the new Truth Predict platform launching. It is a fundamental clash of regulatory philosophies playing out in real time.
Section 4. Regulated versus decentralized markets.
While Congress argues over the laws, a massive turf war is happening out in the industry between the two biggest platforms. And they are handling this regulatory storm in completely opposite ways. Kalshi is playing the onshore game. They're CFTC regulated, they require strict identity verification, and they've even proactively suspended political candidates who tried to bet on their own races. Then you have Polymarket, the offshore, decentralized, crypto-native platform. They run on the blockchain, which used to mean a lot more anonymity. But interestingly, after the whole Van Dyke scandal, Polymarket pivoted. They partnered up with a data tracking firm Chainalysis to trace users. In fact, it was Polymarket that actually flagged Van Dyke's suspicious trades to the DOJ in the first place.
And the crazy part is, this isn't even just a federal issue anymore. A massive jurisdictional battlefield is opening up right now. The CFTC is out there trying to claim exclusive federal control over all prediction markets, but the states are not having it. At least 8 different states have hit platforms with cease and desist orders, and some want to make participating a felony. On top of that, tribal governments are raising huge red flags. They're warning that these unregulated platforms completely bypass the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act, and that poses a serious existential threat to tribal economies that depend on carefully regulated casino gaming.
Section 5, Forecasting Tool or Casino.
So stepping back from all the legal battles for a second, what we're really watching here is a massive philosophical debate about the actual value of information in our society. Let's look at the pro-market side. Efficiency advocates, folks like economist Robin Hanson and Ethereum co-founder Vitalik Buterin, argue that these platforms are essentially superior forecasting tools. They say that by taxing inaccuracy, literally making people lose money when they're wrong, you filter out the noise. Making people put their money where their mouth is crowdsources expert sentiment to create leading indicators that are way faster and more accurate than slow, lagging government models.
But then, on the flip side, you have institutions like Brookings and various ethics scholars warning about the exact opposite. They're calling it gamblification. They argue that the second you put a price tag on a geopolitical event, you instantly create hundreds of potential insiders who now have a direct financial incentive to leak information. And as that Van Dyke case perfectly illustrated, these markets can unintentionally act as real-time signal intelligence for foreign adversaries. They argue it's basically crowdsourcing the declassification of government secrets just through the sheer force of market price discovery.
So it leaves us with this pretty massive question to think about. Is turning every global uncertainty into a tradable asset a brilliant triumph of collective intelligence, or are we just building a dangerous, self-fulfilling prophecy machine? This tug of war between institutional ethics and free market theory isn't going anywhere, and how lawmakers ultimately settle this is going to fundamentally shape the future of both global finance and national intelligence. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today for this explainer. Keep your curiosity sharp, keep asking those big questions, and I will catch you on the next one.